Mr. Martin here. In this video I talk to you about diffusion and osmosis. There are about 100 trillion cells in your body. 100 trillion cells. That's a 100 million. That's a lot of cells. And they all need water and nutrients, food, to stay alive. The question is, how do cells get water and nutrients? The answer is osmosis and diffusion. Here, someone is putting a drop of ink or dye into a glass of water. After a while, the dye begins to sink and slowly spread out. After more time, the ink is really beginning to spread throughout the water. And after many hours, you can see that all the molecules of the ink have spread out evenly all through the water. This is diffusion. Diffusion is when small molecules in air or water can spread out evenly in the space available. Let's look at a diagram. Here is a drop of ink being put into water. You can see the molecules at first are all together. After a while, with jostling and pushing, they move apart from each other until eventually they are completely balanced through the water. Diffusion. The ability of small molecules in air or water to spread out. The key point about diffusion is that these molecules move from high concentration to low concentration. High to low. In this diagram, the high concentration of molecules is on the right, and the molecules are diffusing through the membrane to balance the molecules throughout the water. The cell's problem is that it has a cell membrane, and the molecules that go into the cell and out of the cell have to cross the cell membrane. Now, it's a good way to think of a cell membrane as perhaps a plastic bag. But there's a problem. A plastic bag cannot allow molecules to go in or out. It's not a living membrane. It's a plastic membrane. So let's look at the real membrane in more detail. The membrane is made of molecules, fat molecules, called lipids. They have a head and two long tails made of long-chain carbon. This is one molecule, but the cell membrane has more than one, many joined together, and on both sides, to make a double. And this is how the cell membrane is made. It then links longer and longer until there are millions and millions of these lipid molecules that make the cell membrane. And eventually we can form what we think of as the full membrane around the cell. Here's the outside of the cell, and here is the inside. But remember, it's also 3D, and the cell membrane goes all around the cell. So another way of thinking about the cell membrane is maybe a bubble. You've made bubbles, I'm sure. And when you see the next slide, you can see perhaps how cells could have bubbles. These are very like the cell membrane, but it's a different molecule. These are soap. So, We have the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell. And by diffusion, small molecules can pass through the cell membrane and not break. In the same way, molecules inside the cell can move through the membrane to the outside. But one more important thing, there must be a change, a difference in concentration. Outside, high concentration. Inside, low concentration. And then the molecules can move. In this example, 8 on the outside, 2 on the inside. And when 3 move in, then we have 5 on each side. It's balanced, and the molecules will not move anymore. So high concentration outside, low concentration inside. That creates diffusion. At the same time, the other way around, high concentration inside and low concentration outside means the molecules will move in the opposite direction. This is how oxygen, carbon dioxide, and small molecules move across the cell. Large molecules are helped along by large proteins in the cell membrane. These large molecules go through special channels. So, osmosis. Now, osmosis is about water. We know that the vacuole of plant cells is full of water. This helps the plant to stay up against gravity. But when the vacuole dries out, the plant dries out. So osmosis is all about how water moves. And the number of water molecules inside and outside must be equal. Here we have a diagram with a membrane. Not a cell membrane, but a man-made membrane. There are sugar molecules and there are water molecules. But the number of water molecules is different. And so the water moves to try and balance the number of water molecules. This is osmosis. It is constant, constantly trying to balance the water outside and inside of the cell. When there is a problem, then there is a problem for the cell. So, in summary, diffusion and osmosis allow small molecules, gases, and water to move across the cell membrane.